It appears that you argue for a British interpretation of Islam. What would this look like in practice?
Well, I think it's in a way it's difficult for me to pin down because it doesn't actually exist. But I think any understanding of any religion has to be contextual. If we live in Britain and if we are British and we describe ourselves as British Muslims, we don't just describe ourselves as Muslims. If we describe ourselves as British Muslim, then there has to be certain element of Britain that is part and parcel of if you like, myself or the British Muslim community. For example, I'm a Muslim, but I'm also a strongly Democrat. Yeah. So, but if you were to go to Saudi Arabia, you'll find lots of Muslims. Many of them don't actually believe in democracy. Or if you go to Iran, they have a very theocratic structure. They believe in theocracy. Now, why am I a Democrat? I think that's part and parcel of the British tradition that I come from. I mean, there is a tradition of democracy here, and I grew up in Britain. I kind of lived and breathed that democracy in that sense. So that if you like is just one thing, and then there's another thing that I believe that law is something that is changing and dynamic, is not fixed in history. Because as society changes, you need new understanding of society, you need new legislation, you need new ways to become more civic, if you like. Again, if you go back to certain Muslim countries, most Muslims have a very fixed notion of what a law is. It's eternal and it's fixed, it doesn't change. I have a very dynamic notion. That comes from my British background in that sense. Now, all these things are not anti-Islam. It is just a different way of interpreting Islam. And I mean, even in Britain, there are so many different Islams, as we can see. There's mystical groups, there are, kind of Salafi groups, there are liberal groups, there are humanist groups, there are young groups, there are Shia groups, there are Sufi groups, and so on and so forth. But I think that a British Islam will be an Islam that just reflects the fact that we are part and parcel of Britain, and we imbibe certain values that we regard as British values, even though sometimes they are difficult to pin down. Things like fairness, justice, and so on and so forth. But they are not just British values. They are also, in some cases, Islamic values, in some cases, universal values.
So what would be the role of Muslim religious leaders in this interpretation?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, we, in my opinion, we don't have many credible Muslim leaders, although some young ones are emerging. I mean, I think there are lots of young Muslim scholars. I think their role will be to kind of, reread the Quran and find a new understanding, a fresh understanding of what the Quran is all about, and discover a new way, a fresh way of understanding Islam, basically. I don't think that our understanding of Islam can be fixed. I mean, everything changes. In fact, anything that doesn't change starts decaying, stagnates, and declines. Things change. But the interesting thing is that you need to learn to change things in that sense. And what I would expect from these religious leaders is to change things, to discover new interpretations of Islam. Not just, that the Muslims kind of adjust to British values, but also that Britain itself is humanized through Islamic values. So it's a two-way process, not a one-way process.
Your work's focused on contemporary issues surrounding British Muslims. What topics do you think need further research, or are you hoping to research?
I think everything needs further research. Everything needs further research. I mean, that's one of the things. If you look at any piece of research, even it doesn't have to be social science or humanities. It could be physics, chemistry. The paper would always end by saying more research is needed in this area. I mean, you always need research. So we have a lot to discover. I mean, basically, our understanding of the British Muslim community is quite limited. It's only been the last 10 years that we really started to study the British Muslim community properly. Its history, its connections to kind of heritage countries, what's happening amongst the young people, the migration patterns. I mean, there's so much to discover. So I think we just kind of we have just learned to see the tip of the iceberg. The real iceberg is yet to be discovered. And I'm hoping people like you would go out and discover it, or at least bits of it.
Okay, thank you very much for
Thank you,
coming
Ellen.
today and participating in our interview.
Thank you very much.